G'day guys, Peter here from Oz Commercial Sewing Machines. Today we're just doing a short video, well it may not be short, but it's a video about all the buttons and features on the 1987B, the Prosew machines, and also the 1933, as they both use an identical panel with identical buttons in exactly the same places that do exactly the same things. So to start with, we'll look at from the top and we'll go around like this. Okay, the first button here, this is your digital stitch length. So you can see that there, that in that little box there is the stitch length. So we can adjust that by just clicking the plus and the minus buttons. Now, this is not going to be an in-depth video, but this is just going to explain what they do. We'll do in-depth videos on each of the buttons and how they work individually, because some of them are quite in-depth, and will take a little bit to explain. Okay, so this one here, the manufacturer calls it the pattern back tacking setting button. So when we push this, okay, it takes us into a settings screen. Now you can also a long push, we'll go back, take it back, or you just double push it to get it out. And what we'll do is we'll long push it, and it takes us into a totally different screen where we can do some editing. So this screen on all of the these functions is an editing screen. So, and to get out of that, we just push the button again, and that takes us back out. You can see that we're in straight stitch sewing mode because there's this arrow over here. Okay, this button here is called, according to the manufacturer, is a tight seam setting. It's actually more of like a condensed stitch or a locking stitch. So you can see what this done. It has a start feature, an end feature, or both on the feature. So what this does is it sews a designated amount of stitches in a very short stitch length before it does the back tack and the end tack, just to secure the stitching so that it doesn't pull out as easy. You can go in edit this feature to say how many stitches you want, and also edit the stitch length. So this is the forward part. So okay, so at the moment we're doing 2 stitches at 1/2 millimeter stitch length. Now you can adjust the stitch length as to how you want it, and you can also adjust, okay, 1 is backwards. Okay, so instead of sewing forwards 1/2 millimeter, you can sew it backwards at 1/2 millimeter. So you can go back into your sewing before it does the back tack by 2 stitches, or however many you want to put in there. So you can adjust those. Okay, up to 12. And then it switches, you can switch between the 2. So if you go, we'll go back in there. So you got forward, and then, okay, so which one is it? Okay, so there we go. It's this. It's the 4th row. So that's your backwards. That's your forwards. So they both can be adjusted to suit. Okay. Now this button is our pattern sewing button. It's fairly straightforward. Now there is an editing function on this button as well, but it's if you want to edit the built-in stitches basically, or change them in any way. So to start sewing your patterns, you just click that. You can see you've got your tacks. You can still change your back tacks, and there are 9 built-in pattern stitches. Okay, and you just adjust, or you go through them. You're not adjusting in this one, you're just going to select your pattern. So really you don't know what they are until you stitch them out. There's no feature in there, but you can see what they are by going into the editing feature, which is a long push, and it goes in there. Okay, and you can select your 10. There's 10 in there, so there is one that you can create. Okay, yep. So to get out of that, just push that button again, and we're back out to straight sewing mode. Okay, now your this button here, the X1 to XN, this one says it's pattern constant stitch sewing setting, but what it does, okay, it gives you the option of sewing 15-sided item. So you've got A, B, C and D, and you've also got P1 to PF. So that's 1 and F is 15. So because this machine, you can only count up to so far, they start using letters instead of numbers. So 1 to 9, and then the rest is 1 to 9, and then you've got A, B, C, D, E and F. So you've got 15 sides. Okay, that's what that allows. And it also takes you to the 4-sided object counted stitch. So, and you can adjust that. So you've got A, B, C and D as your start and end tack. So you've got E and F, so E and F. We've already done a video on this system, so if you need to find out more, you can go and see the video on constant stitch sewing mode. There's the G and H. Okay, and back to the start again. Okay, and now we're going to the tortoise and the hare. Okay, so tortoise there, which is the slow speed, that reduces your speed. Okay, and this is the, to increase your speed is the picture of the hare. So this machine does 4,000. Okay, that's done. Now these, the plus minus buttons, edit this center section here. So they determine how many stitches on the front face in the start and the end tack. Okay, you got your program button and your set button. Okay, now over here, this is your start tack. Okay, so you can have, we'll turn these off just for now. Now we can have one tack, which means that it'll go forwards only, and then it'll start your sewing. Or actually, no, sorry, it goes backwards. I did test this one just recently, and it goes backwards and then you start sewing. So if you're going to use just one, you have to start further in and let it sew backwards and then start sewing your seam. Okay, you've got your double, which means it goes forward, backwards, and then starts your sewing. Or then you've got your double tack. So it does forwards, backwards, and then starts sewing your seam. So it's a really strong start to your seam. And you can do that for both the start and the end tack. So this one's start tack with AB in it. This one is the end tack with the D, the CD. Well, it's actually said DC, because that's the way it works. It goes, you sew your seam, then it goes backwards, then forwards, then backwards, then forwards if you've got this on. So we tend to run mostly just the double tack, because that's all we need. Now this one here, this one, if you're in any of the programming modes, this takes you back to straight sewing mode. So if we're, say we'll go into this one, okay, this one doesn't take you out because you're still in there. This is an editing mode, so we just have to double push that one. But if we're in pattern sewing mode, okay, no, this one here, that's right. So if we're in X1 to XN or any of those and filtering between things, You just push this and it takes us back to the standard sewing mode. This next button is called, the manufacturer calls it consecutive reverse sewing. So that's this button here. It's written as A, B, C, D, C, D, C with an E across the bottom. So what it does, this is sort of like what we call, it's kind of like a bar tack, but it's not, because it doesn't do any zigzag stitching, but essentially it's layering forward and reverse stitches, kind of like what you would use to put a belt ring on your pants. So let's show you what that one is. So what you've got here is F1, or F is 15 and 1 is 1. So if we wanted it to be 15 and 15, okay, so we'd set it all at F. So that means it would do 15 stitches forward, 15 stitches backwards, okay? And if we go into here, it would do that 6 times. So we can set that up to do as many layers as you like. So up to 32 times. So all that's doing is piling stitch upon stitch upon stitch. So that's it's a really heavily reinforced straight stitch if you're doing it 32 times. So you don't really need to go up that high. I mean, half a dozen times is heaps. So that's piling on. So what that's going to do is go forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, and then it will cut your thread. So there's that feature. Now we'll turn that one off and go back to straight sewing mode. Now this button is called multi-stitch, multi-segment sewing. So what it does, I've done a few videos on this one as well. So what you've got, now if we push this, it does a straight line. So you've got your start tack, your end start tack and your end tack, and then you're into your E. Now your E is just prescribed here. It's just one straight line, but you can count how many stitches you're going to do. Okay, so anywhere up to, I think it's 999 stitches long. So it can be one massive big line, and then it'll do your end tack and it'll cut your thread. So that's E. Now if we push this again, we do a four-sided object. Okay, so you've got A, B, C and D again, your start and your end tack. Then we've got E, F, G and H. Okay, so that's 4 sides. Now if we push this again, we go to a 7-sided object. Okay, of seven segments, as it says. Then if we push this again, we go to an 8 segment, because that little picture has got 8 sides. And then if we push it again, we've got the P1 to PF. So that means that we can have a 15 segment object, all counted stitch. Now you have to program each side, how long you want each side, or how many stitches should I say on each side. So when you go into here, now they're still only called, okay, so it's P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 sides. Okay, so you have to know how long they need to be and program that in to get the shape. So basically you're drawing the shape, and then you're going to work out how long each side's going to be. So there's a bit of maths involved in doing that, but it may come in handy. I don't know anyone that uses that. So we'll push this again, and it takes us back to the start, so the E. And then we can get out of there by just pushing the straight sew button again. Okay, this button here is your needle up-down position. So you can see it switching over here. That's needle up now and needle down. Okay, this button here is your soft start. So you can see I'm running that, and I'll turn it off. So the soft start, what the soft start does is it does however many pre-programmed stitches slowly when you put your foot down, and then it just goes however far you've got your foot down on the pedal. So the soft start gives you, normally I think it's 2 stitches at around a pre-programmed 600 or 800 stitches a minute from memory from the factory. We can adjust that, but that's what the soft start is. Okay, now you've got your scissors, your thread cutter underneath, so you can turn that on or off. Okay, when you run your thread cutter, the nipper also stays on. That just determines the length of the nipper, which is this picture up here. Sorry, I'll detail that. That is determining how short the tail is, or how long the tail is after the thread is cut that hangs out of your needle. Generally 1 inch to 1 inch and a bit is a good length to have hanging out your needle. Okay, so then this one here is essentially the same as the button that's down on the neck. This is a single stitch button. So if you push this, it will up, down, down. Every time you push that, the needle will go up or down depending on where it is at the time. Okay, now these 2 buttons are interesting. This one here, so if we push this button, it's on 0. So what that does is takes away the pedal, the heel back pedal foot lift. Okay, so if we put this back on and it's number 1, we have foot pedal lift as well as knee lift. So that cancels out your knee lift, your foot lift. Now this one here, what it does, this one says the first push, it will cut and leave the foot up for a prescribed amount of time that is pre-programmed in. If we push it again, basically this is saying whenever you're sewing and you stop and you'll take your foot off the pedal, the foot is going to come up, which allows you then to pivot if you've got the needle down position, which is nice. So you can move your work around, and then as soon as you put your foot back on the pedal, the foot will come down and it'll continue sewing. Okay, so that's a handy little function there. You can have either one or the other, or you can have both on at the same time. All right, so I think that covers all of the buttons and their functions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.